Enjoying Star Trek? Well, thank a teacher on National Teachers Day. Today it is Trekland Tuesdays live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and Trekland Treks, where it is getting to be Trekland Trek season, gang. You want to customize your own away mission around Southern California to revisit some of your favorite actual Star Trek sites? Get in touch with me. We will customize your own away mission. Yeah. Coming at you here another Tuesday for some sanity, clarity, and a bigger picture in all things Star Trek. If you're watching us later on YouTube, glad you are. You can leave a comment too below, just as the live folks did. But we'd love to have you sometime on a Tuesday afternoon when you can. 1-ish Pacific, 4-ish Eastern, 9-ish UK, and 10-ish Central European. That's the deal. So here we are. And if you are new, please, it's fine to lurk. It's fine to lurk. And we have a lot of people who lurk for a long time, but it's always cool when you sign off, when you speak up and let us hear from you. Sometimes I hear from people in other threads and email that never are here in the chat, but they say, I watch on Tuesdays, which is awesome. And again, after last week's marathon of a lot of things I felt needed to be said, needed to be restated, and once again needed to be connected, taking a breather. We have guests coming the next couple of weeks, which is going to be awesome. But for today, as we watch Discovery unspool, as we watch the fight over what the final deal for Paramount Global's future is going to be, is some of these, and as whatever the inevitable little fandom fracas pops up on socials, whatever happens, I noticed that today was National Teachers Day. Now, there's all kinds of things, sadly, competing for attention in the headlines. Some of it's tragic, some of it's misguided, some of it's insane. But at the heart of it all, at the heart of civilization in many ways, let's remember to thank a teacher. And you know what? I don't always do that. Well, and I don't always mark National Teachers Day, but we just had this confluence. Ooh, I can say confluence. I had a teacher. There's a mix of everything aligning right. For one thing, it gives me a chance to say congratulations and much love to my niece, Heather Nemecek Smith, who this year was Teacher of the Year. Got the reflection? There we go. She was Teacher of the Year at her middle school in Prague, Oklahoma, and then she was the Prague Teacher of the Year for 23-24. So yay, I love you, Heather. Congratulations there, and well-deserved, and and all those things. It is Teacher Day, and when you think about teachers and Star Trek, you can go to the obvious thing, right? And think, well, who's been a teacher in Star Trek? Well, we've had lots of academy professors and all that kind of thing, but some things with sometimes, our mind immediately goes to, Keiko on DS9 until she ran off to do botany of her own, till the boys got too old for education classroom stories to lose their relevance a little bit. And it did get very ugly there with the bombings of her school, something that's sadly never out of the headlines. But, next gen, the big family ship, families on board, primary schools. So a shout out to Miss Gladstone, who was Ian Troy's teacher, Lieutenant Ballard, who was Lol's teacher for a few hours anyway, and Miss Kyle, who was Alexander's teacher, with the Gilvo in the classroom. Took them on field trips. Or field trips paid with their class. I don't know. How do you not go on a field trip when you're on a starship having class? I don't know. Not so many teachers per se on all the other series because, we haven't been so family oriented. I don't know. But if you want just, on the nose, by the book, shout outs, anybody can scroll up Memory Alpha and check out your teachers from Keiko on down. Let's not also forget Amanda Grayson was a school teacher by profession, Spock's mother. So there's that. Can't go wrong. And most of all, personally, and you know what? We all are a product of our time. The time I grew up in and where I was, there was a lot of growth. There was some stability. There was uproar over Vietnam and Watergate and all of that, but there was also stability socially. Now it reads as old sentimental nostalgic posts by boomers and older exes about the world we grew up in. But it feels like the most disruptive force going on most of the time I was in school. And there was also some political, national, social thing. But the biggest thing that was disruptive was, and it seems like an eternal situation, was funding. It was education funding and being cut and all that, and education being a priority. And National Teacher Day is hashtag National Teacher Day is a way to honor these heroes for the most part, but also one of these things we always give it lip service. Oh, we never pay teachers enough. It's insane that our professional athletes and our professional movie stars, all of that, entertainers, and they should be rewarded. But the balance is out of whack for the value that teachers among so many service providers do. But this is really the backbone of civilization, gang. But what I'm trying to say here is, it's just like excuse the old phrase, beating a dead horse here, a broken record. What are the metaphors and aphorisms and all of that, similes from a digital era? Is anything ever going to be as colorful and textured as it was in the analog days of everything? I don't know. But the point is that imbalance of payment for the role that certain professions play in civilization, society, culture, keeping them stable and ongoing, things are way out of whack. And we've said this for decades. And is anything being done about it? Are we having slow incremental change at all? It depends on where you live. I know a lot of that. And even what country you live in too. That's just an uphill battle that it feels like we're always going to be living with. Never enough, never enough. But I just feel very blessed when I was a kid that I was in a small-ish district. But the biggest thing was it was very suburban, next door suburban to a suburb, but it was under huge growing pressure. There was never enough money. There was never enough resources for most of the time I was growing up, because it was such a huge rural district serving an under-industrialized, tax-based district. And that's a theme that's repeated all over the place. Some districts are very urban and they have a lot of urban social problems. I don't know what I would do these days. I was a kid. I had kids. The whole social media, phone in your hand generation. Oh my God, I don't know what I would have done if I'd had kids today. And by the same token, knowing how teachers are dealing with that. And look here, if I wasn't doing what I did here, if I didn't go into journalism and theater, I would have been a teacher. Fully half or 2/3 of my cousins have all been school teachers, either lifelong or at least part of their lives. My older brother's college degree was in industrial arts education, being an industrial arts teacher, shop teacher, and before he went into law enforcement. But yeah, very close to I was very close to my teachers, and some of that you say, well, that's the privilege of having lived in a fairly stable, small town, small district, and that's true. But here's the thing. I don't care where you live and who your teachers are. And yes, there are always some bad ones in the bunch. Although why? Are they under stress? Are they not being paid enough? Are they under the stress of dealing what they're dealing with? Are they under a out of whack social system? And there's all kinds of things. I didn't mean to get into the politics of current education plans. Although I do think that running and hiding in caves and segregating off is not the answer. We miss something when we're not all dealing with each other. As we're showing right now, it's really easy to get siloed and lose track of having any contact with anything else. So I will always be a huge supporter of public schools. And in the places where they're in need of aid, the hyperbolic might say in crisis, then fix the fucking crisis. And if you don't have people to fix, then get better people to work on your problems. This doesn't have to be rocket science. And you can't reinvent society, I know, to support that. But we can't run away and hide either. We never get anywhere. Well, I don't know. I feel like I'm going into some Kirk speech about always having to struggle to make humanity better. But I do know one thing. I do know that when it comes to teachers in Star Trek, the red letter day, maybe it would have happened some other way eventually, in a competition for the attentions of me as a kid. But yes, I've told this story so many times, but it was my 9th grade science teacher that finally shamed me, pop culturally shamed me into going home and watching Star Trek when she found out I wasn't, after school reruns. So thank you, Mrs. Pollard. That's no longer her name. But here's the thing, she was a first year straight out of college, bubbly first year, still had all of her vim and vigor and her excitement, her enthusiasm for teaching. And that was junior high, that was middle school or first year high school, however your schools are divided. And you know what happens. You know what happens. There are beloved teachers, there are sadly burned out teachers who work their entire lives and they retire. And hopefully, unless someone's attacked the system that's supposed to protect them from political influence, from, I mean, even like crazy parent political influence, but also provide them step raises and have a pension at the end of all that. And some people now, 40, 50 years, we have things, and suddenly people think they come along and revise that. That needs to stay. In fact, we need more of that. We need more of that, because if nothing else, the pandemic ripped the Band-Aid off and showed us who really was vital to society and how they tend to be the ones who are most underpaid. And we put so much stress, the angst on teachers as well, to educate our kids, but also do everything we don't want to do as parents. We need you to be the secondary educators that way. And that varies from kid to kid and from district to district, I know. But teachers are under so much stress. And you know what? We celebrate. I think of the old days when I would have older, especially in grade school, especially elementary, when I had older teachers that had been career teachers and they retired and, had the big retirement thing and had years and years and years and years of students who could talk about them. It tends to be more that way with elementary. and high school. You get into problematic stuff and dealing with raging hormones and adolescence and all of that, and getting out of there and pressures of life and parents and family and all the social things. We ask a lot of our teachers, but I think about how bubbly and perky Miss Pollard was, and how the first year teachers were always that way, and how some made it and taught for years, and how some don't, or they teach for 5 or 6 or and realize they cannot make a living. They cannot have a family on what they're making as a teacher. Maybe they have a side hustle. Maybe they go into administration, or they coach, or they sponsor 15 clubs. They do something madly to try to up their income. They drive buses. They do all those add-on things until finally maybe they just can't, and they go back into private business. They do something else, or they go get advanced degrees and they wind up teaching in college. And that's fine. That's the feeder system. But I think of that raw enthusiasm for so many first-year teachers right out of the gate, when they're so enthused to share knowledge and change the world and help their students open their minds, especially if they're in a situation where they're not going to have much world eye-opening ability. If they're in small towns, if they're in places where there's not a lot of mix, if they're in pretty bland-looking places, they're trying to do their best to bring some new ways of thinking, which of course today is under attack. But that's how you don't go stagnant. If the world around you isn't doing it for you, if you're not in a busy, bustly place with lots of people and viewpoints and experiences mixed in, then the teachers are the lifeline to bring that in if they're left to do it. And for whatever reasons, most of the time it's just they can't afford to live. They have to change. And that's what's wrong. Have we made any progress on that with our teachers? I don't know. I'm going to say this to bring it back around to what we're all supposedly here for today, this time of day. When you think of it that way, when you think of how much, like so many in other professions where they're not paid so well, but they take a lot of pride in their job, and they take a lot of pride in the service they provide, whether it's the people on their route, whether it's the kids they see every day in their classroom, whatever the field is that may not be paid the most, but they and they're actually completely necessary to the functioning of society, but they're not paid as much. This just dawned on me this morning. They can be young and energetic. We might beat it out of them with the situation they're having to live with. But you know what? If ever there was a modern day career that's ahead of its time, that's living in Star Trek's time on a Starfleet level, I'm going to say it's public school teachers. Excuse me, if there was ever a career living in Starfleet time, but without that whole post scarcity, we don't need money thing. What did Picard say? The acquisition of wealth is no longer a driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. Well, the teachers are living that every day. The ones that have not been burned out, the ones that still have the fire and the flame and love seeing the look in their students' eyes, the ones that still feel like they're helping change today and change the future for sure, make it a better future. Those are the people living in Star Trek's times. Only, yeah, without that whole we don't need money, we don't have currency, the acquisition of wealth is no longer of importance to us. They're still having to live in that world, even when they're sharing the enthusiasm, the desire for a future of that other part. Think of it that way. So, happy National Teachers Day. We can go to the obvious connections there about teachers in Star Trek and look up the little Memory Alpha article. But we've got to not forget what was exposed in the pandemic. We've got to remember who really are the pillars that hold up a functioning society. Because I tell you what, kids, some of the way that society's going is obviously showing the effects of not having enough education, not having enough exercising of the brain vis-a-vis critical thinking skills. We can never not have enough of the basic facts of thinking through a problem, getting all the facts together, and then coming up with, whether it's a math equation or it's every decade or so re-examining the history that we thought we'd lived. And it starts with the kids. Oh, you could go to college and have professors that may expand your mind that way. They may be expanding your mind too fast. And then things really get radical, as we're seeing these days. But just the building blocks of what I call in everyday life, keeping your blinders open, right? Don't get sucked into that groove. Don't get stuck in a rut. Don't get caught in a stagnant backwater, whether physically or mentally. That's not how we get to the 24th century or the 25th or the 32nd or even the 22nd. All this talk lately about changing the prime timeline and, having the temporal incursions, I would totally love it if somehow we could just kind of totally bypass the need for that whole World War III thing. Yeah. If we could just get Cochrane to come up with his warp drive functionality without having to use an old nuclear missile, that would be cool. If we're going to be into this whole temporal wave revisionism, I'm for that. But I don't see how we don't get there until we are able to enable, to support, letting our teachers teach our kids not just dry dates and facts, but how to use their mind. Math problem solving gets us there. Yeah, even algebra and geometry. They at least keep your mind nimble and let us know what's happened in the past, all of it, the good, bad, the ugly. And even not just who did what, but what was what. And as fast as society's changed, I find myself giving tours at Will Rogers, teaching kids what telephones and typewriters were and radios. The culture is changing so fast, the things from 30 years ago are already ancient history. And even if it's just for the fun of it, we're even more on an accelerated pace to remember to pass on to these new minds how far things have come, how fast the acceleration lane is, both for the nerdity trivia of it, but also to bear in mind why half of the world feels like they're going in slow motion. Half the world looks like they may be just doddering and elderly, because things really have exploded. The digital revolution in so many ways. And when you come down to that there may not be a class in education colleges. There may not be a class in that. We ask our teachers to do so much more than just convey facts. And I know what it was like. I remember babysitter teachers, in effect, in a good way, not replacing parents, but just adding on. And they're out there and they're going above and beyond. So yes, let's do what we can to support the profession. Let's do what we can to not punish teachers for not being gods and goddesses and saving our kids and our society. They want to build to the future, but when they're stuck having to fix the current, that's a tall order. And we were asking them to do it on such a small paycheck. And apparently lately with so little job security. No one ever takes, not that I've never been on the side of the parent who is in the right, because I have. There's a lot of pressure that teachers are under because of the current times. So many ways. National Education Day, National Teacher Day means so much more than it used to, even 10, 20 years ago. Food for thought, gang. Food for thought you never thought you'd be having on a Star Trek show and Trekland Tuesdays Live. But there you go. From the personal, thank you, Mrs. Pollard, to the canon, thank you, Amanda, and Keiko, to bring it at home. So that, yeah, hopefully we can get to that Star Trek future. All right. Did I surprise you? I promise we will have guests. In fact, not just next week, but the next 2 weeks coming up. So I'm looking forward to that. But what I'm really looking forward to is as it gets warmer and con season and travel season and vacation season. Yeah. I said it once, I'll say it again. TreklandTreks.com. If you've had an itch to have a day tour to Star Trek sites that you pick out yourself and I concierge you around, fill in all the gaps for you, wrangle your props, handle your cosplay with you, do all the things, pick you up and bring you back when you're in greater LA somewhere. We'll work it all out in advance. Yep, we're that season again. But of course, I got to thank our Patreon folks, right? Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Josh Patton, Justin Porteous, Glenda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakashan Productions, Comedy Forecast. Always love changing the syllabus around there. And Andrew Zimsky and our live wires. Thank you guys too. Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Javier Gunn-Janssen, Alan Hoensi, David Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, Greg Wickstrom, and Casey Shafsky. And when I say that, we just started a new month. So here we got a fresh slate. It's patreon.com/TreklandLives. It's just a $5 and $10. Go ahead if you want to. Go with more. But that's what it is for a shout out. And so much thank you. It's about time to do another 6-month access to more interviews, more of our guest night videos from the earliest years of Portal 47 back there. So thank you. Thank you, all you Patreons. And if you're not, that's a very basic way you can support everything here if you enjoy what I'm doing. And bit by bit, we're picking up more folks catching TTL later and Second Opinion. Second Opinion right here on my channel every week. Whenever there's fresh Trek, it's a reaction show, occasionally to headlines, but the mainstay is a reaction show to the fresh Trek. I really enjoy those. This is the first year that Discovery, first time in 2 years, has been around since we've been doing Second Opinion. So it's really the first season through applying the Second Opinion framework, which is me reacting. And it's not in the heat. You can get up and look at your 6 a.m. Thursday review shows. That's totally fine. But Second Opinion is on Saturday. You can read and watch everybody else and then see. I might be repeating something else, but I bet there's at least one point in every show that nobody else is getting to, because that's the Trekland way and the Dr. Trek way. However, what is on hiatus right now is the Trek Files. But you know what? There's 11 seasons, 24 episodes a season sitting there. And some of our guests, 15, 20-minute shows, they're folks that are no longer with us. So Dorothy Fontana, for one. Late, great Richard Arnold for another. Check it out. Check it out. We're the only podcast with homework. And most of all, if you're leaving us now, YouTubers, Larry Nemecek on Twitter X. Would you please check it out? Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube, Larry's Trekland, and Portal47.net. If you enjoy the whole vibe here, we have such a great community of the Portales. It's a monthly package, subscription-based. You get, well, go to Portal47.net and check it out yourself. I believe that's it. YouTubers who are catching me later. If you're live with us, though, hang on. I'll be right back after this little break. But for leaving us now on YouTube, sure. Just, do all the things. Stay healthy. Stay woke. Check your sources. And, yeah, trek well, everybody. And thank a teacher you're a Star Trek fan.